Hi everyone, in this video I'll explain the difference between the getParameters block and the post and get block. So every workflow that you build will start with either a getParameters, a post, or a get block. Now the way that you intend to execute the workflow will dictate which block you'll use. So if you're planning on executing a workflow internally, meaning connecting a workflow to a card, to a form save, to an init workflow, for example, we'll use the getParameters block. So you'll be using a getParameters to start your workflow whenever the workflow needs to be executed from inside of the app itself. Now, let's take a scenario where the workflow needs to be executed outside of Visru, meaning some third party will send a request to the workflow, and in this case, you'll either need to use a post or a get. Now, which one you'll use will depend on the goal of the workflow. If your workflow is simply taking in a request, looking up information, and then returning data back to the third party, you'd use the get block. On the other hand, if you want to take in the request from the third party and then change the state of the application based on that request, then you'd use a post block. So here's our post, and here is our get. So typically you'll use the post and get whenever someone wants to use our workflow as an API endpoint. And just a little side note that in the majority of cases in your time spent building workflows for a Visru app, you'll be using the getParameters. Now, let's open Postman and let's try to execute the workflow using each of these blocks. Okay, first, we'll start with the getParameters. Now we expect this to fail because the getParameters block only allows you to execute the workflow from within the application. So let's take our workflow and let's put it into Postman. Okay, and we'll hit send. So when I execute the workflow with the getParameters, we see an error down here. Okay. Now let's try the same thing, but we'll use the post block. Okay, we see that that worked. We get an empty response, but we can clearly see that the workflow executed. Now, let's try with the get. All right, and we get the same response. So hopefully this clears up some confusion on when to use the getParameters block, the post block, or the get block. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.